Hi everyone. Welcome to this session, this Independent Music Toolkit session. I need to be quick. The idea of this session is to be really quick, but I want to take a moment to say this is a new format. We're trialling at the conference. As you're probably aware, a lot of stuff we do is kind of panel based, but we thought it was a really good opportunity to get three people who hopefully know what they're talking about. That refers to me, not Chelsea or Alice, to cover sort of very specific topics for you. So these are going to be quite snapshot. There's three of us. We're going to do about 15, 20 minutes each. That is going to then fit into the hour. So I'm going first. If you didn't meet me earlier, my name is Whiskas, or Sam. I run the Launchpad programme, but I also am a lecturer here at Leeds Beckett University on the Music Industries Management course. So I'm going to do a quick overview of music royalties. There we go. And music royalties and royalties collection, and how you can basically ensure that you're receiving all the money that you are due when you release and perform music. So, if you are an artist, a writer, or a musician, you are releasing your music on streaming your services, you're performing original music in a live environment, specifically if you have radio play for your music that you've written and performed on, and that you've self-released it, there is basically 5 ways in which you need to sign up to services or do different things to ensure that you're collecting all the money that is due to them, which is arguably at least 4 more than you probably should need to do. Before we get started on what those 5 ways are and the way it's split up, if you're not aware, the way music copyright works, it basically splits into 2. It's the copyright that exists within a recording and the copyright that works within a composition. Now obviously, many people in the room, people who come to this conference, a lot of them will write and perform their own songs, so they will have a right over both sides, like the recording that they perform on and the compositions that they write. But it might be that you're performing a cover, or you're someone who's working with music that's written by somebody else. So it's important to make this distinction in terms of how royalties flow, whether you have performed on it, you essentially own the recording of it, and whether you've written it. And each of those different things entail different systems. And I think the other important thing to recognise is if you do all of those things, like in my previous slide, so you've written them, you've performed them, and you've released them, you still have to go through all these different ways in which to ensure that all the royalties that you might be due are collected. So from when we talk about recording rights, we're talking about who's performed on a recording and who owns that recording, which typically is a record label. For anyone in the room who's self-releasing, you essentially act as the record label, or what we call the master rights holder. When we talk about compositions, we talk about this term publishing. We refer to publishing as the rights around the compositions, the composers of music. So that is who is part of the composition of a song, who are the songwriters. You go through a system of assigning those rights to what we call PROs, which in this country we generally refer to PRS. So that's where PRS come to play, and that allows you to license your music for public broadcast, essentially. You may also find that you need to work with a publishing company. So in much the same way that people might be familiar with a record label signing artists to record music, a publishing company will sign songwriters to write music and then monetize the rights there. And hopefully I'll break that down a little bit more over the next few slides. I've got this down. There we go. I'm going to cover 5 different scenarios really on this that cover different ways. So I'm going to talk about what happens with your royalties when your music's streamed, what happens with your royalties when you perform live, what happens to your royalties when your music is played on the radio, and try and refer these back to publishing and this thing called neighbouring rights, which we haven't mentioned yet, but I'll come to in a minute, and is related to the recording rights. Right, so first of all, streaming. So I'm sure that you know is that most of the revenue paid out by DSPs go to a distributor. So if you're releasing music, hands in the air, how many people here self-release their music? So quite a large percentage of you. So if you're self-releasing music, you get a chunk of money that you will be owned if you've done all the things, if you write and perform and release your music, going to a distributor. And that is generally for DSPs. DSPs, by the way, we mean streaming services, if you're not aware. That is the collective term for Spotify and Apple Music, etc. 70% of all the money they make goes back to rights holders, of which most of it goes to your distributors, but not all of it. So straight away, 18% of the money that DSPs pay out goes to the songwriters. They go to the publisher's share. And actually, that doesn't all go to one place. It actually goes to 2 different places. Half of it goes to PRS, and half of it goes to a thing called MCPS. I'm going quickly on this, so I'm not going to do all the in-depth detail on what those are, but the PRS bit is for the fact that when it's streamed, it's viewed as a broadcast. Your songs that you've written have been broadcast. And the mechanical, the MCPS bit, is because it's been duplicated, like a new copy has been generated. And that is split 50-50 between. So essentially the point of this slide is that if you have written the music that you are self-releasing, and you are not signed up to PRS and or MCPS, then you are missing out on some of the income that you are due from your streaming. I've got a very DIY thing here to try and explain it. There we go, let's just get it all up. So, as we said, in the UK, it's approximately 82% of the money that the DSPs pay out go to a distributor or a record label. Now, if you're working with a distributor that doesn't take any percentage because you're paying a fee, you will then get all of this down here. If the distributor takes a percentage, then that's the figure you'll get after that percentage. That is, as I say, if you are recording your music and writing your music, that is 80% of the income. If you're writing your music, this 18% gets paid out half to PRS and half to MCPS. So again, if you are writing your own music, then you need to ensure that you sign up to both those services in order to receive 100% of all the music, the royalties that you will get from streaming. You can have, if you are signed to a publisher or have a publishing agreement or an administrative publishing agreement, they will sign you for both of those two things and ensure that that is collected. So that is a good way to make sure that you do that. I'm going to run through a few things and try and summarise at the end. How are we doing? Live. So, probably one of the most common royalties that people are aware of is that when your music is performed live, you're eligible for payments through PRS. That's because PRS license public spaces like music venues, and then they pay a portion back of the money that they're paid back to the songwriters of the songs that were performed there. It might be a covers band, it might be an ABBA covers band, and that makes sure that ABBA get paid for their songs being performed at that venue. But if it's you and you've written your own songs and you're performing on that venue, you're still eligible for songwriting royalties that get paid out to PRS, and then PRS, if you're signed up to them, will pay that back to you. And just for a little bit of context on that, if you're playing what's called a small gig, a gigs and pub scheme, that is £10 per gig. So if it's just you, you're a solo singer or songwriter and your songs, you might get £10 for playing that very small gig. If it's a small gig but there is a 10-band like metal lineup and you've all written your own songs and every band has 4 or 5 people, that £10 will be split between 50 people. That's how it works. At bigger gigs, at bigger ticketed gigs, you get paid 4.2% of the ticket sales. So if it is a kind of academy show, it goes a bit lower than that as well. 4.2% of all the ticket sales of that go back to pay the songwriters of the songs that were performed that night. Yes. What to do now? Radio play. So radio play is actually probably one of the most complex sides of this. And actually, if the music that you have self-released, performed on, and written gets played on the radio, you're actually eligible for royalties in 4 different ways. So, if you've written the songs that get played, most people will be aware that you get PRS. It's quite a common thing. Your music gets played on radio, you'll get some money from PRS. What started to happen in the last 2 or 3 years is a radio play also generates this thing called a mechanical royalty. As I mentioned earlier, a mechanical royalty is when your songs that you've written are duplicated. Now, because of the advent of apps like BBC Sounds, every time someone listens to a radio show after it was broadcast live, that is classed as a duplication. So we start to see a lot of income come through because a lot of emerging music shows are on after midnight, right? You know, kind of BBC Introducing, New Music Fix on 6 Music. A lot of those shows are listened to after midnight and downloaded through BBC Sound, so that generates this MCPS. So if your music that you've written is played on radio, again, you need to make sure you're covered for both your PRS and MCPS. From the recording side, so if you performed on it and you release that record yourself, you own the master recordings, that's where PPL comes in. Now, PPL collects what's called neighbouring rights, the thing that I mentioned at the start, and they collect the public broadcast rights for your recordings, for performers when recordings are broadcast in public. So obviously really similar to PRS, but they look after the songwriters. PPL essentially look after the performers on recordings and the people who own the recordings. Now, again, if you're a self-releasing artist and your music gets played on radio, you're eligible for a royalty as the record label and a royalty as the performer. Again, making it simple, if you're a solo performer, that's 2 things. And actually, because the traditional model is that a record label and performer are 2 different things, you have to collect them in two different ways. I think I've got another thing here. There we go. And the same applies for TV plays as well. There we go. So, radio play, as we said, pays PRS and MCPS a license fee, does radio stations, that then goes to the songwriters or the publishers if you've got yourself a publishing deal. For the recording side, it pays PPL a license fee, and that pays 50% to the master rights holder, which traditionally would be the record label, and 50% to the performer. As I keep saying, the master rights holder, if you are self-releasing, is you. How are we doing? So, I'm doing all right. To collect your PRS and MCPS, there's a couple of ways around that. So, as I said, collectively refer to this share, the share that is for the compositions and the songwriters as publishing and publishing royalties. So to effectively sign up, collect them, you need to be signed up as a member of both organisations, and each writer of the songs need to be signed up to these organisations. And it's a cost of £100 each, unless you're under 25, and I think it's currently at £30. Okay. So if you're in a large ensemble, that could be quite expensive. You are members for life, so it is worth doing. If you can do that, and there's some stats on those websites about how much royalties you have to make in order to kind of make that £100 back. There is an alternative to signing up to them at point, like if you don't have that £100, and that would be to sign with a publisher. So a lot of big artists obviously have, well, nearly all big artists are signed to a publishing deal, and they will offer them incentives to kind of have their publishing and pay a percentage of royalties in order to collect all of these things. One of those advantages would be sync, which Chelsea's going to talk about later. But on a kind of grassroots level, there are a number of organisations now who do what you might call administrative publishing deals, which allow artists and songwriters who aren't signed up to PRS and MCPS and don't have the funds to do it, to collect their income off mostly for a percentage as well. But it does have the benefit of more efficient international collection, potentially increased promotion, and the fact that you, as I mentioned, can be put forward for sync opportunities, which will happen, we'll talk about a bit later. There we go. Neighbouring rights. So just to be clear, neighbouring rights is the term for the royalties collected by the organisation PPL, and they are the rights referring to those who perform on recordings and own recordings. Now, to collect the income, the neighbouring rights from PPL, it is free to sign up. But if you are the label and the performer, you need to sign up for two different accounts. And we find a lot of that creates a lot of confusion and a lot of problems. Not everyone realises that they're two different accounts. They also work slightly differently, so you sort of have to get your head around that. Now, the other thing is that with PPL, these accounts are free to sign up, but there is you have to print the forms out. You have to have photo ID that's scanned in. You also have to, if you want them to collect your international rights, you have to sign up. You have to fill out a US tax waiver form. This can be intimidating for lots of performers. PPL are very good at trying to troubleshoot it. There is some guidance on the website, and that is also something that we support with through our Launchpad programs as well. It is frustrating for us trying to support artists because it's free to sign up, there's no barrier there, but I don't think Sarah's hosting a panel in the other room. It is quite a clunky process, unfortunately, but it absolutely is worth doing, especially if you're finding that you're getting radio play as well. So that is a really, really big whistle-stop breakdown of how royalties work in all these different scenarios. A few top tips. Really, really ensure that you are collecting all your royalties for your music. Personally, I find it very frustrating when I'm trying to help artists, and artists are kind of struggling for income, and some of this might be pennies, but the pennies turn into pounds, and pounds turn into more. And again, if you are able to sign up for royalty collection agencies at source, that is a lifetime membership where that money keeps coming in. I haven't released any music for 10 years, and I still get some payments from all three of PPL, MCPS and PRS. It is pounds, but it is something. You can sign up to all these services direct, but the option, if you're not doing it, and again these forms feel intimidating, the systems of some of them you find hard to manage, do reach out for help. Either help in filling out the forms or help for someone to admin it for you. We know artists who've kind of put off doing this thing and have kind of lost out on royalties that they would have been due. Within the time frame, I haven't got the time to kind of fully explain the kind of time scale in terms of what you need to collect, but I will just mention that PRS can backdate up to 3 years, but there is some things around radio play that is shorter. With PPL, again, a bit that I will just throw out and mention is that if the only way to collect money from PPL is if the master rights are registered. So if you're a performer but don't have a master rights account, you can't register the recordings. And they can only collect the royalties on recordings in the year of broadcast. So if a calendar year ticks over and you haven't registered your recordings that were played on radio the previous year, you can miss out on those royalties, and that makes me really sad. So yeah, publishing admin can help with your, in terms of help, publishing administrative deals can help you with your PRS and MCPS. If you're releasing through a label, they should be collecting the master rights side of PPL, but you do need to do your own performer royalty. I mentioned a few times earlier today, and some of you will be aware, that through Launchpad we have a program called Launchpad Plus, and it essentially exists to help you with all of these things. So if people are looking for help and support, we support hands-on with all of these things. We can help you sign the paperwork, we can do the admin for you and things like that. But the option to do it yourself is obviously kind of paramount and foremost to this as well. And that, I think, is my summary. There, links to us. Thanks. Did we have a question or two? Frank Wilkes.
Hello, sir.
Do we need a microphone?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello there. There's a streaming service called Spotify, which is popular with young people, who have decided that they aren't going to pay anybody that hasn't got 1,000 streams in a year. So what they're going to do about the MCPS and PRS on those 1,000 or 999 streams that you get that you don't get any royalties for?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Frank.
No problem. I just wanted to
does Tony know?
At the moment, it hasn't been decided. They haven't made the same encroachment as they have on the master side with the publishing, but I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah, I was about to say something like that. It's probably all up for negotiation. The same thing happens with things like TikTok. There's this general understanding that 70% of the royalties get paid down across all the things. I think that was a very helpful question to catch me out, but I think it helps me make my final point before I move on, which is that in most of these cases, the income generated gets split between all these areas. So that's the thing to watch out for. If you're collecting them, you might collect them, and then we can think later about how nice or nasty some of the DSPs and things like that are being to people. Okay. Thanks, Frank. Right, I'm going to pass over to the next person now. Alice, there you go. I hope you've got a horrible question for Alice as well, Frank. There you go. Good luck. Thanks, everyone.
Well done, Frank, for putting whiskers on the spot there. So Frank is my boss, and he is a lovely man who owns a company called Kicker, who are a Sheffield-based music distribution company. So I've worked for Kicker for about 9 months now. I'm also an artist manager and a musician myself, and I've come to talk to you all a little bit about editorial pitching and how to get your music pitch ready. Are we? I saw Whisker struggle. I'll give you a thumbs up. Perfect. So yeah, Spotify editorial playlists, how to get your music pitch ready. So what are Spotify editorial playlists? I'm sure everyone in here has used Spotify at some point or has released music onto Spotify before and will have seen the editorials. They're usually the big playlists. They've got the iconic Spotify logo in the corner. They're often based on genre, mood, or an activity. If you've got any hip-hop fans or hip-hop artists out there, I'm sure you'll be aware of playlists like Rap Caviar. All the indies, all the independent artists want to get on the New Music Friday. And they can be really great for up-and-coming independent artists. They really help boost your numbers, which in turn can help you hit the algorithm playlists, which will in turn boost your profile. So, what's the process? Before I start, how many of you guys have pitched to Spotify before? Okay, cool. And how many within that has managed to hit an editorial? Okay, fab. So hopefully if I pitch this again next year, you'll have some more hands up. So yeah, find your pitch method. You can either use Spotify for Artists directly, which I'm sure most of you will have done, or you can pitch through your distributor. It's something that Kicker offers, and there's a couple of distributors as well that do offer distribution pitching. So I'd recommend whatever distributor you use, find out whether you can go directly through your distributor, because there are some benefits to doing that, which I'll discuss a little bit more in the next slides. Next step, sorry, that was misleading, I apologise. Next step is to build your assets. Make sure you've got everything that you need for the pitch, whether you're doing it through Spotify or whether you're doing it through a distributor. You will need slightly different things, but again, I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But you'll need press images, you'll need lyrics, you'll need artwork, and your basic information, so like what the genre is, what instruments you use on the tracks, all that kind of thing. And then the last step is to create the pitch. Like I say, answer the basic questions, which will help the editors put you into the right place. And then you've got what I call the quick pitch, which is where you're given 500 characters to talk a little bit about the song and give the DSPs a reason to care about your music. So, pitching via Spotify for Artists, which I imagine most people have done in the past. You go onto your profile, you can see here, go to Upcoming, and your song should appear there. See the little purple button down there, it says pitch a song. That will take you through to the pitch. I will say it's really, really important, probably one of the most important things about pitching is you have a 4-week lead time. Depending on what distributor you use, they have different delivery times. So I would always recommend you put your song through your distributor at least 5 weeks before release day, and that gives you that buffer time for it to appear on Spotify. So when you upload to a distributor, it's not going to appear in this section straight away, but you'll give it a couple of days and you'll see it appear here. So you want to be doing this step at least 4 weeks before release. So go into the picture song, find your track, and then you put in your basic info, like I mentioned earlier. This is what editors use to be able to put your songs in the right place. So if you've got a really sad song, they'll be able to put you to the sad playlist. If you've got a really upbeat song, that's where they'll put you. And the same with the genre and the theme. Fill in all the basic info. A really important step is being honest. I've worked with artists who have clicked multiple buttons to put themselves into loads of different editors, but you've got to be clear about what your track is about and what playlist it's going to fit in. And the final step, and this is arguably the most important step of the pitch, is to write your description. Like I say, 500 characters is not a lot of space to get in your selling point, but I'm going to talk about the 5 things that you need to include and you need to get in there to get a really strong pitch a little bit later. So, pitching via a distributor. Before I started working at Kicker, I've been managing artists for 4 or 5 years now. I didn't know this is something that you could do, but it can have some really big benefits. So when you go through Spotify for Artists, you put in your location where you're based, and it will send your pitch to that location. Whereas with distributors, depending on the way they work, the way Kicker works is you get sent out worldwide and you get put into multiple different places, which can really heighten your chances of hitting those editorials. I can't tell you off the top of my head which distributor offers it, but shameless Kicker plug, I can see Frank smiling at me. It's something that we offer for no extra charge. Some distributors charge for it. I'm sure there's probably some boutique services out there that don't, but it is something to consider. So what do you need to provide? With distribution pitching, there's often a lot more info that you need to put in. So my job at Kicker is to take artists' pitches and put them to Fuga, who are our aggregate, that will then get delivered to all the DSPs. And it is a big job. They usually take me 2 to 3 hours to do a pitch, depending on what the artist has provided. And they tend to ask for things like your tour dates. They ask for loads of information about your budget, your marketing drivers, and if you've got like release parties coming up, anything like that, they ask a lot of information. So you've got to make sure you've got all the right assets and you've got a lot of stuff going on around your track. How do I know if my track has been pitched? So again, I've spoken to artists who have pitched through distributors before, and they say, I don't know if my distributor has pitched my record. When you go into that release section on Spotify for Artists, if you've used a distributor, it should say pitched by the company name. So for example, it would say pitched by Kicker, and it would say the date it was pitched, and you'll be able to see the pitch through that way. So, the most important part, this is like the juicy bit of the pitch. This is where you get a chance to explain to your editors why your song should be in their playlist. You want to open up with a sentence about you as an artist. Don't keep it too long, keep it nice and short and snappy. Something that will grab them, why you started music, where you're from, and the type of artist you are. Second step, a little bit of backstory on your track. If you were going through a heartbreak and you were really upset and you wrote a song about it, tell them why. If you want to talk about political injustice, put that bit into this section of the pitch. This is your chance for editors to see how your music's going to make listeners feel, and that will help them playlist it better. Step number 3, what does your music bring to editors? So this is the part where you need to be thinking, what am I doing outside of Spotify that's bringing audiences to the platform? At the end of the day, Spotify is a business, and they want to see that you're able to channel your audiences from Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter onto their platform. So you want to do a sentence about what your music is bringing to Spotify. Step number 4, what are your marketing drivers? Arguably, out of the written pitch, this is the most important bit. This is where editors are going to prick their ears up. What is going on outside of Spotify around release day? Radio plays. Have you got a big feature coming up? Have you got a release party? And you need to be really thinking, what am I doing around the track? It's important at this part that you don't mention DSPs. That's something they talk about a lot in your marketing drivers. So you're not going to want to talk about other playlists you're on. It's stuff that's going on the outside. Depending on whether you're doing Spotify for artists or whether you're doing distribution, you often have a little bit more flexibility with a distribution playlist. From my experience, we don't have a character count, so we can talk a little bit more. If you've got a limit of 500 characters, maybe I'd say do 1 or 2 big marketing drivers. Within your distribution playlist, I'd say they recommend about 3 to 5. So think about what's going on outside and how you can prick up your editor's attention with that. And the last step's a little bit hypocritical, but who else is involved and what are your budgets? We all know Spotify are horrendous at paying artists well, and they have the cheek to say that we need a budget to be hitting editors' playlists. But whatever you've got, whether it's £50, whether it's £100, whether it's £1,000, let Spotify know what your marketing budget is and tell them who else is involved, if it's a PR company, if it's a radio plugger, if you've got help with other creator playlists, pop that in the last bit. So yeah, these are the 5 steps. It's really hard to get it all into 500 characters, but keep things short and snappy. And I know it should be about the music, and I want it to be about the music, but they do really, really want to know what's going on in terms of a marketing perspective. So, how do I know if my music's been accepted? Unfortunately, Spotify don't like to tell us. If you've hit editorial playlists, they won't let you know prior to release, and they won't let you know after release. You don't get an email like you would with BBC Introducing or something like that. So it's really important that on release day, you're checking your playlists. I'm sure you'll have all used Spotify for Artists before. You can see where your streaming's coming from and what percentage of that is from your profile. If you see that percentage increasing on the editors, you know you've hit an editorial playlist. So keep an eye on that about 1 to 2 weeks after release day and see if you've hit an editorial playlist that way. Thank you. So, you've hit editorial, amazing news. What do you do now? So, if you've hit editorial playlists and you're in a playlist, Spotify will then generate a unique link that is within that playlist. So if you're promoting your music, you've got a new release out, most artists will go to their profile, they'll click the 3 dots next to there, I can see people nodding at me, they'll see their track, they'll copy their link, they'll put it in their Instagram bio, or they'll put it in their TikTok account or whatever. Spotify will then know that audiences are coming through that link, which is going directly to your profile. If you hit an editorial playlist and you click share, they will then know that anyone clicking that link is finding your music through the playlist. So if you're promoting the link that's within the playlist, it tells Spotify this artist is working. They're bringing people from their platforms to our platforms. And that will keep you in the playlist for as long as possible. I've worked with a couple of artists in the past who have hit editorial, who have used that link that's within the editorial playlist and promoted that, and it's kept them in the playlist for weeks. And if you stay in playlists for weeks, you're getting multiple streams every single day, and in turn increasing your fan base. So your music doesn't get accepted. That's absolutely fine. I feel like there's a lot of hype around pitching and around hitting editorial, and yes, it's great for streaming numbers, yes, it's great for your algorithm, and it makes Spotify aware of you as an artist, but it doesn't make you or break you. We don't want to focus our successes on whether we've got 1 million streams on a track and whether we've hit editorial playlists. What's really important for you artists when we're thinking about becoming full-time and making a career out of your music is having a brand, having those 100, 1,000 fans, people that are going to buy your merch, people that are going to buy tickets, and people that are going to mean that you can have a full-time career in music. And editors aren't going to do that for you. It's a great thing to be able to have, and take on board everything I've said today to add that into your playlist pictures. But I don't want people to think that I've not made it because I've not hit an editorial playlist. I've worked with artists that have had hundreds of thousands of streams and thousands of monthly listeners who haven't hit editorial. And I've had an artist who has never released in his life and he's hit editorial first time. So don't value your success and where you are at in your career based on whether you've hit editorials. But I really hope some of these tips have helped you get a little bit more knowledge about how to get that music pitch ready. Brilliant. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone's got any questions, chuck your hands up. Yeah.
Just on those 5 pointers you mentioned, what does your music bring to the editors?
Yeah.
Can you give us a couple of examples of that?
Yeah. So, if, for example, if you're releasing a song, a TikTok campaign or an Instagram campaign, social media campaigns, they want to know what you're doing around that, whether that's, say you've got an influencer on TikTok who's creating a video to your song. That's a really good way of saying to Spotify, I'm trying to generate audiences across different types of platforms and I'm using that to bring people across to Spotify. So it's any ways that you can show the editors that you're funneling audiences back to Spotify. Another example might be, and me and Frank talk about this a lot, funnel campaigns. So you'll be running marketing, paid marketing on meta ads. So Instagram and Facebook, if you've got a short 10-second ad and you're running paid ads on that, you're generating your fans through to Spotify. And if you can show them that you're doing that around release day, it'll prove to them that you're pulling audiences from a separate platform over to Spotify. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question all right? Brilliant. Anyone else? Any other questions? Don't even think about it, Frank. I've seen you do it once. Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much to Launchpad for having me. I've really enjoyed coming and chatting to you guys. And me and Frank will be around today if you want to come and chat to us if you get any more questions. And I'm going to pass over to Chelsea, who's Queen of Sync. And
I will take the clicker because I found out that you can put GIFs in slideshows, so guess what's coming? Right, one thing you mentioned that I really enjoyed was that when we talk about an artist project, a lot of that hangs in the shiny statistics and the music is kind of secondary, sadly. So this is where Sync's a little bit different, and I am an artist manager and I'm a Sync agent, so I straddle both worlds. So on some days, I'm polishing up what my artists are doing and I'm hitting them with the stats, and on other days I'm going music first. And I will say it's a really nice side of the industry with that in mind. Oh, I have to be closer. Hello. Hello. Turns out I'm standing here. Right. What is it? Please come on. One more time. Yay. Right. So sync is also known as synchronization, and essentially it's just when your music is licensed to media for a fee. So media could be TV, film, games, brands, there's tons of opportunities. Oh no, go back. And licensing means you give someone the right to use your music under agreed set of terms. And agents like me negotiate those set of terms. They're always for a set amount of time, and the reason I put that on there is because you can license to multiple different people as long as your contract doesn't say it's exclusive for a period of time, meaning you can make multiple amounts of money out of the same song on different bits of media. So, here come the GIFs. Loads of places across TV, I'm going to go back, TV and film. Absolutely tons and tons of streaming services exist now. So, if I go back 15 years ago when I started in this industry, a bunch of these just did not exist, which is giving away my age a bit. But the beautiful thing for all you out there is there's loads of opportunities to get your music in stuff. You know, streaming platforms is one. You've got things like Sky Sports I've put on there. Now Sky also has Sky Arts, Sky Movies. Like, think about the other things these organisations are doing and extra places you can get your music. And then we've got adverts and brands. So this is the sexy side of Sync, I'm not going to lie, because this is where most of the money is. and everybody wants to be on the latest phone advert. Of course we do. If anyone remembers Dynamite being on the Samsung advert, the BTS track, then you'll know how powerful these can be. And also car adverts, which no-brainer. That might spring to mind composition, because this might not just be individual artist tracks with lyrics that you release. There's composer opportunities in this realm as well. And now Fashion Week. Slightly different, but your brands are looking for music, not just for adverts. So, anybody who's like a millennial is going to know what that is, and anyone who's not is going to be like, who is this cool dude walking down a catwalk? That's Ben Stiller in Zoolander, which is a wonderful movie. But when Fashion Week happens, right, Paris, Milan, London, New York, they are licensing the music that the models are walking down the catwalk to. So there's another sing placement you might not be aware of. And I really enjoy the social media chat, because when I started in sync, it was a little bit of an accident, not going to lie. But I worked with an artist who did really well on these platforms, particularly in lockdown. And I started licensing music and compositions to that artist's TikTok account. And to give you an idea, and I can't name names of artists, but we got commissioned by eBay to do a 30-second TikTok video, and the fee was £30,000. So she got £1,000 a second, which made me ill, because I never get that kind of money. Point being, that is the only side of sync that does rely on a profile, and there is a side of that. Most things don't, but if you do have a profile or work up to a profile, a sync agent's going to be to negotiate a lot more for you as well. And then we come on to games, which currently is kind of my favourite, I won't lie. It's just such a nice territory. And if anyone is a sports fan, this used to be FIFA. We're not allowed to call it FIFA anymore. But FIFA is one of the, EAFC, sorry, is one of the biggest gaming things. Everybody wants it, and there's massive streaming numbers that come off the back of it as well. So your fee might not be as high as you think, but your streaming could go through the roof. Now, any Gen Zers in the room? Because I didn't know what Fortnite was for a while. But Fortnite is one of these realms you shouldn't ignore, because I think I've got a little stat later on, but they've got ridiculous amounts of monthly users. So your fee to get on something like this is about $1,500. It's not that big. It's not going to change your life. But the exposure you're going to get off the back of it might. So again, think outside of the box with sync. There's tons of opportunity. And you know, I grew up with Grand Theft Auto. You know, did anyone else get in the car and switch the radio on? Like, banging. Used to love that. I love Tony Hawk, skateboarding. Like, soundtracks in games really, really make a generation, and everyone thinks back to these. So it's a huge up-and-coming area of this industry. There we go. 40% of Gen Z found new music from games in their, as their main source of discovery. 40% find a new artist from games. That's mental. And I found that out at South by Southwest last year, and it's stuck with us for a whole year. Right, so why should you do it? Now, as a manager, right, I've worked with artists who are signed to major labels and have big shiny budgets and all that fun stuff. And right now I work with independent artists, and it's my favourite thing to do. This is why I push sync down independent artists' throats, because good syncs with big fees, could independently finance your next release, and then you don't need to give 50% or 80% of your rights to a label if you don't want to. And so how you get paid, is one is a sync licensing fee. So that's where I'm going to say to you, Netflix want to use your track, they're going to give you $2,000 as an example. I would send you that as the agent, or the production company would send you it if you manage to get that yourself directly. And right, this is where Whiskas chat comes in super, super handy before mine, because the licensing fee is paid to anybody who owns the music. And I don't have time to do a deep dive, there's a little bit in here, but go back to the slides. If anyone took photos of them, have a look, because the way that breaks down between the master rights owner and the publishing owners is how the fees break down in sync. So you don't get it paid through those platforms, but whoever owns the music has a right to part of the fee. So, big bold letters, get your stuff registered, because as an agent, right, I get so many people pitching to us with great songs, and then I take one look at PRS and it's not done, or you're not with MCPS, or you're not with PPL, and there's certain sync placements that you just cannot pitch for without this stuff being done. So I cannot, honestly, if there's one thing you take away from today, it's that. Get the stuff registered. because you increase your chances of being taken seriously by about 95% by people like me. Yeah, not getting a sync if it's not on there. So, right, exposure, another biggie, another reason you should have sync. Royalties. Now this links to exposure through streaming. So, I've just talked about FIFA, and I think I've got a little thing later on about this, but the amount of streams you can get from a sync placement sometimes maxes out the fee. So even if you're getting 10 grand, but you get millions and millions and millions of streams, and you get radio play, and your profile goes through the roof, then you're going to get money from elsewhere outside of this sync placement. So royalties is a big one. And they are paid to you by those platforms. So again, another reason you need to be on all three of those things if you want to collect all the money from this exposure. Hey. So, here we go. Did anybody watch 13 Reasons Why on Netflix? Wonderful, at least one person did. Lord Huron released this track. That track is on 1.5 billion streams. So I'm telling you now, they did not get a fee as high as what the royalties will be on 1.5 billion streams. So that is a prime example. Obviously, Stranger Things, couldn't go talk about sync without putting that in there. And my current favourite, anybody seen Saltburn? Yeah. The reason I put this one in here is because it's a little more recent, and I think Saltburn came out about 2 months ago, maybe 3. It's not that old. Look at the difference in her streaming numbers right now, because this is relevant. She was streaming pretty well, do you know what I mean? And Murder on the Dance Floor, granted, was her biggest track, but look at the increase and the difference. And now she's getting booked for every bloody festival under the sun, she's back on radio, she's back in the charts, she's getting way more from PRS, MCPS and PPL. So this is the importance of this stuff. Right, and this is the FIFA bit I was on about. So, bearing in mind, we're talking 1.5 billion, and similar for Kate Bush, right, she had a bit less. That's the number one streaming track that's come off FIFA, 1.9 billion. So games has a huge place, and this is only the top 6 tracks I've put on. As you can see, Avicii's from 2015, Imagine Dragons 2013. This stuff lasts because it's on such an iconic game. So these placements exist, and they will bring you exposure like this if you land them. Here we go, that's what I was on about earlier. 230 million active users on Fortnite a month. Digital has done mad things to this world, absolutely mad, but they have about 400 or 600 million signed up, but 230 are active. So if you get on Fortnite radio, you've got a shot at being in front of all of those people, depending on what station they pick to listen to. Right, so everyone's probably thinking, well, that's great. How do I get it? What is the practical next step? I'm not going to stand here and tell you can't do this on your own, because I got into this on my own. So in this industry, anything is possible with a lot of hard work. But as artists, right, your focus is writing, recording, releasing, marketing, playing live. Having the time to do this on top is quite a big ask. So this is why you might want to think about a sync agent. And what I do is I talk to these people, music supervisors or production companies. Now, they put the music back into these forms of media. So that can be anything from reality TV to the game production companies to movies to brands. My job is to know those people and then to take my artists and put them in front of them and say, check this out because it's amazing. Right. And briefs. I'm going to pull some briefs up at the end because everyone's like, give her the briefs, give her the briefs. Briefs are amazing. It's people emailing me and saying, I'm looking for this type of music. But what's so funny about it is they're proper vague. They sometimes give nothing away and it's like a little bit pointless. But the reason having an agent helps is because I know what then the music supervisors are looking for. So I know whether or not your song fits and can pitch it back. And of course I negotiate the fees and the exposure opportunities. If you're going to get a big sync in a TV show and they want to use it as like a fundamental part of a scene, then I'll be saying, can we do some social media campaigns around that for an additional fee, as an example. And the other thing is, I get, like, with all due respect, not to be awful, I get my shit in order. So all your deliverables, all your masters, all your lyrics, all the metadata, everything you have to have ready before you even bother reaching out to someone like me or a music supervisor, that's part of my job, and I can be your buffer to stop you from ruining a relationship with a music supervisor if that's not done. Yeah. Right, so this is the fun part. And I promised one early at the end, so there's some time for questions. Here is a brief I got last week. We are on the lookout for new and exciting tracks for a summer campaign. All 15-second spots. Artists can be from anywhere, but we'd love to have it being released in the last year or the forthcoming release. Something with universal lyrics which can hook you in, ear-catching and bold, ideally around one of these themes. Zoom. Who writes a song about Zoom? Do you know what I mean? Here forever. To be fair, that's lovely, I get it. What I find really funny about this is, because it's so vague, I pitched something back and I was like, nah, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure enough that because it's vague I can get away with it. And they came back being like, you've nailed it. And I'm going, yeah, you know what I mean, I know what I'm doing. It was a total punt, I won't lie. Budget to be decided. That might make you think it's £1,000 or something low. It turns out it was for one of their biggest brand partners on the sports side. So don't be put off if a budget is to be decided. It might just mean that they don't have it yet, or they just don't need to give you that info right now. Then we get the big, sexy, exciting briefs, which you might notice, max budget, 80k. So I didn't get this one, I don't think. I'm still waiting. But this is important to bring up because it's a little bit more in depth, right? You'll notice a few things. Upload track ideas to this disco link. Does anybody know what disco is? Cool, brilliant. Disco is just another version of like SoundCloud-ish, but it's really prominent in the sync world. Another reason to have an agent, because I have one of these and you don't have to pay for it. Deadline, right? I got this the day before. Yeah, there was less than 24 hours for me to get this bit of music back. And I won't lie to you, most of the briefs I get are on the day or the next day. In the 90 minutes it took me to drive here, I got a brief for 4 o'clock today. Like, it's just crazy how fast this stuff moves. And you'll see that they actually put some examples that, obviously I'm not going to link to them now, but I could listen to examples they wanted, but they explain why they didn't work. So briefs go from everything to just vague as out to really in-depth, this is what the director loves and we just need to find a replacement that's affordable. So if you're going to dive into the sync world, my biggest bit of advice is just do a little bit of research, try and speak to, the wonderful people at Launchpad and at your uni and try to learn a little bit, because if you pitch things that are not as close to the brief as possible, they don't take you seriously. And I will say, I put this out with a few people I know, and people would send stuff back that wasn't, the last one, that wasn't their latest track or their upcoming single. It was from like 2018. Like, it's not on the brief and I can't use it. And right, my last thing, just because I know I haven't got long, this is my takeaways. So, media includes TV, film, game, brands, and more. You'll get a sync licensing fee, and you might get royalties depending on the exposure. You must register your work or work with a rights administrator, just like Whiskas was saying. And you can work with someone like me, a sync agent, to help with that. So I apologise that that's a super, super fast version of sync, but I can take a couple of questions at this time. Awesome. Yeah, has anybody got any questions? Yes, I saw your hand first.
When working with the agents, how does the artist pay you?
Yes, great question. If any agent says, give me £100 a month, or anything like that, pie it off. Because a good agent takes their cut from the sync licensing fee. So I get paid when I do my job for you. So it's very artist friendly, and usually a lot of the agreements are non-exclusive. So I don't contract you in. We work together on a 30-day rolling basis. For anyone who works with Centric as a publishing administrator, it's quite similar to that. Only, I'm a sync agent first and foremost, so that's what I do, pitch you out for sync on a non-exclusive basis for a cut of the fee. The next question obviously being, what is the cut? So I would advise you don't go higher than 50%. And I won't lie, I'm a 50% agent, which is high, but some people do 60, 70, 80, and some people do 20, 30 and 40. The decision you need to make is, do you go major versus indie kind of vibe? Like, I keep my books small, so I don't take a lot of music, so I make sure I pitch everyone I've got. Therefore, we do a 50-50 split, because I believe you can't do it without me and I can't do it without you, and it feels equal. Yes?
Hiya, just a quick one. You mentioned all the deliverables.
Yes.
Yes, I know you might not be able to go through them all, but is there a good source for someone to look to know what deliverables we should be keeping in mind?
Well, to be honest, I don't think there is a great source, I have to say, because I get loads of questions like this. But the main things you need to have, right, main things that are urgent, a mastered WAV. Do not send demos to your sync agent, because nobody can use a demo, it must be mastered, right? I want your mastered instrumental up front, because the amount of times they go, that song's mint, but the lyric is not right for this show. So I need to go, no problem, here's the instrumental, straight away. If you use profanities, if we love a little F-bomb in the room, I need a clean version or a radio edit, because the BBC are going to be like, we're not touching anything with that word in it. All of that needs to be mastered. In addition, and this is the bit nobody likes, I really want stems. Because if you get a big boy sync and they want to interweave the show music, you know, that they did on Stranger Things with Kate Bush, they're going to be using stems to create the composition around it. So please have stems ready. Mixed is fine, individual stems is better, if you can. I know you, yeah, so you can go. Sorry. Is this okay? Have we got time? Yeah.
Thank you, Sophie.
Hello.
Hello. It's more to do with the slides for everybody. Oh, sorry, is it not on?
It's to do with the slides for everybody in the room. Is it possible for yourself, Kicker and Launchpad, to make these available, and if so, how everyone can get a copy?
More than fine with me. Mine are super basic compared to Kicker's. Frank, you always outdo me. He's always do. But that's fine if it's fine with...
I just see a lot of people taking photos, and there's a lot of information. I appreciate you guys have crammed it all in. And I think a lot of people on reflection, it'll be good.
If you just chat to us after during the networking event, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to sort something out.
Great, thanks.
Cool. Have we still got time? We all good?
Yeah, just one
Yeah.
more person over there.
Yeah.
So as an agent, how can people that have like no knowledge of the industry get in contact with agents like yourself, or is there like a forum, or where is it that we can connect with people that you understand what we need to do?
Yeah. Honestly, if anyone uses LinkedIn, everyone's on it. And I won't lie, so are all of the music supervisors. So what I always say to independent artists is, if you cannot get an agent yet, or you don't find the right agent, it doesn't feel like the right fit, because remember, as independent acts, don't sign to someone or anybody if it does not feel right. You don't need someone necessarily. You want to wait for the right teams. My advice would be LinkedIn and Google, which is super basic, but we're all on there. And if you can't get an agent, if agents are not interested right now, then you can go to music supervisors directly. And I do a bit of coaching on this stuff outside of here. And I spoke to a guy last week who had already had a brand advert with a Pretty Little Thing, a catwalk on Fashion Week, and he was trying to get Love Island. And the reason he couldn't get Love Island on his own is because he didn't have MCPS registered. So you can do it yourself. My advice would be look at agents if you feel like it's a bit info heavy and you don't know how to start. But LinkedIn and Google is genuinely a really good place. Cool, well...
Any more questions?
Yeah.
There's one more over there. Right, we might only have time for one more, if that's okay.
Just less from the sort of artist side, I'm just wondering how you got into the job that you're doing today.
Yeah, to be fair, that's a really good question, because I've done artist management for about 14, 15 years, and I stumbled upon Sync because honestly, like, no disrespect to any publishers, but the publishers we were working with were not bringing Sync in, because I think you've got to remember, a Sync agent, that's their sole job. So every day I get briefs and every day I pitch out, and I pitch artists everywhere. A publisher does many other great things. They exploit your works, they register your songs, they put you in songwriting sessions. Sync is something else they can bring with their Sync teams. But I had artists with profiles and I just wasn't happy about the level we were getting. So instead I thought, oh, well, can I just reach out to people? And I did, and it ended up going really well, such as the eBay thing. We got many, many more. And it was proof to me that that artist had wonderful songs and a brilliant catalogue, and nobody was putting the attention on it that it needed. And my biggest thing with all artists is you care the most about your project. Arguably your manager is second, because I live and breathe my management client stuff. But you are the one who will drive this more than anybody else. So bring in bespoke teams. If you want to sign to a publisher, that's no problem. Try and get something in your agreement that says you can also work with a third-party sync agent. Because at the end of the day, if we bring you exposure and streams, your publisher's going to collect royalties on the back end anyways. So in theory, everybody wins. But I got into it that way because publishers just weren't giving me the sync, so I just did it myself. And it went really well, and then I opened an agency when I moved back north from London. So yeah, this is what I mean, you can do this stuff yourself. I am very DIY as a music industry human, and And I'm very proud of that because it's a big, scary industry and it's hard to know where to get the answers from. But rely on your local networks. Like, I was in London for 5 years and I didn't feel like I had a community. And I came back north and there's Launchpad and there's Generator and there's Brighter Sounds and there's all these incredible places you can actually get in touch with people, as opposed to like trying to ring up Universal Publishing and be like, oh, bad example with TikTok, sorry, but ring Warner or someone else. Don't get in touch with Universal, it's a tricky topic right now. But my point being, rely on your networks, start small. I'm the only sync agent in the Northeast, which is wild. I thought there'd be more. But you can look globally these days because everything's done online. And I do a lot of work in LA, in New York. So, yeah, I know that's tangent off a little bit, but like, I just think it's really important that everybody leaves understanding that if I can be where I am today through pure graft, so can you as artists. And that is my TED Talk. Thank you very much.
Next panel starts at 3:30, so you're free to go grab coffees or join on the panel. Thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you